Hello aspirants, a very warm welcome to Scholar IAS. This is Rohan Dange, your faculty for economy. So in today's session, we're going to cover economy-based current affairs, which is going to be absolutely relevant for prelims 2021 as well as mains 2021. So there has been a lot of discourse and narrative shaping around how to make India a $5 trillion economy. And since that is the objective, it is very important, not only from an economist point of view, but from the point of view of any layman, to understand that infrastructure is the key to development. Infrastructure is pivotal to the development of any country. So if we intend to become a $5 trillion economy, we must focus on infrastructural development, the development of social and physical infrastructure. And keeping that in view, it is absolutely critical to mobilize financial resources for the same. And therefore, in today's topic, I'm going to discuss one of the most important or one of the most relevant programs, or one of the most important ambitious programs of the government of India, wherein the government is trying to establish a development finance institution to fund infrastructure. So let's take a look at the modalities of the same. So when you talk about the development financial institutions, basically their very objective is to provide long-term capital for industries and agricultural sector. From that point of view, the IFCI, IDBI, ICICI, IIBI, SIDBI, NABARD, NHB, these are all examples of development institutions which have a specified explicitly mentioned target, right, wherein they target a particular sector, specifically speaking, right? So these are essentially development finance institutions, and although there is a presence of DFIs in India, but there is a consensus building around the fact that we must now enlarge the scope of DFIs. So commercial banking network addresses the need of general banking, mainly for meeting short-term working capital requirements of industry and agriculture, right? But not only from the perspective of business expansion, but also from the perspective of creating new assets in the industry, it is important that long-term finance is made available to every sector in the economy. And keeping that in view, the government has proposed to set up a development finance institution to solve the problem of infrastructure financing needs of the country. If India wants to march towards becoming a $5 trillion economy, then according to estimates, we must mobilize 111 lakh crore of rupees, which can be easily pumped, or which should be ideally pumped into the infrastructural sector. This is the intensity and the quantum of infrastructural investment which is required. Now, this particular DFI will be set up on a capital base of rupees 20,000 crores, right? And it will be enlarged to the extent of 5 lakh crores in 3 years, right? So debt financing through the infrastructure investment trusts and the real estate investment trust routes will be enabled. Now, what are these trusts and how do they operate? Suppose you are a layman, suppose you are an investor. If you have 10,000 rupees or if you have a lakh of rupees to invest, you can invest in these trusts. You can put your money in these trusts. So these trusts will have a inflow of money. That money can be utilized by these trusts to develop infrastructure or to develop real estate, right? So this is basically using the investors' money to create assets. Now, what is in it for the investors? Naturally, return on investment. So when you speak of return on investment, you are going to make a certain amount of money on the initial capital that you had invested, depending on whether the project takes off or not. So an INVITS, Infrastructure Investment Trust, is like a mutual fund, which enables direct investment of small amounts of money from possible individuals or in institutional investors. In which sector? In infrastructure sector, to earn a small portion of the income as return. It could be to the tune of 8% or 10%, or even more than that or less than that, right? So these are also basically treated as the modified versions of REITs, that is Real Estate Investment Trust. And they are particularly designed to suit the specific circumstances of the infrastructure sector. So they are similar to REITs, but they invest in infrastructure projects such as roads, highways, solar power projects, and so on and so forth. Right. Now, what is an REIT? An REIT is again a mutual fund that invests in real estate, although the similarity doesn't go much further. The basic deal on REITs is that you own a share of property, because obviously real estate means property. So you own a share of property, and therefore an appropriate share of the income from it will come to you after deducting an appropriate share of expenses, right? So for example, initial investment was 1 lakh rupees. Now you own, and the project cost is about 10 crore rupees. So you own property worth rupees 1 lakh in the 10 crore project, right? If the overall profit from that project is 2 crores, right? So that means 20% is the profit. So after deducting the expenses, the profit will also accrue to your accounts, which could mean 1.15 lakh, right? So I'm just giving you certain, what you can say, indicative figures. These are just indicative in nature, but I'm just trying to, this is for the purposes of understanding. Okay. So a real estate investment trust is a company that owns, operates, or finances income producing real estate, right? Because we always look at real estate as a source of investment or as a destination of investment rather. Okay. So या तो हम घर खरीदते हैं रहने के लिए या तो investment के लिए, right? So REITs provides all the investors a chance to own valuable real estate. And the good thing about real estate is that it always appreciates. Okay. माना जाता है कि रियल एस्टेट हमेशा अप्रिशिएट होती है, डिप्रिसिएशन बहुत कम होता है, या डिप्रिसिएशन शायद ही कभी देखा गया हो, राइट? So it presents the opportunity to access dividend based income and total returns, correct? So a development financial institution is required for the funding of infrastructure and for the development of real estate, right? So हमारे यहाँ पे problem है credit crunch का. In India, the problem is credit crunch. Liquidity is absent, and banks who are offering interest, they are offering at a high rate. Therefore, for private investors, it becomes very difficult. For enterprises, it becomes very difficult to enlarge their investment capacities. And from that, keeping that in view, it is obviously a step in the right direction, wherein we are trying to catalyze more investment through these trusts. So these trusts will become the backbone or the pillars of the development finance institution. And the institution is definitely going to catalyze a lot of infrastructural financing in the country. And in the foreseeable future is going to morph into a, what you can say, a principal financial institution, right? And it will actually enable a supportive ecosystem across the life cycle of infrastructural projects. Why am I talking about life cycle? Because कोई भी infrastructural project जो होता है, it's a long term project, correct? So 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 50 years, even 60 years to 100 years is the life cycle of many projects. Keeping that in view, such long term credit availability can only be made possible through the DFIs. And therefore, these DFIs are going to be absolutely critical from the perspective of mobilizing investment and resources, that is financial resources in Indian economy, right? So with this, we have come to the end of today's lecture. I will see you in the next lecture with more topics. But before we stop or end the lecture, I would like to tell you that इस तरह के questions आपको mains में जरूर आएंगे. Today's topic was mostly centered around mains analysis, right? So GS3 में आप इसको जरूर expect कर सकते हैं, and इसीलिए I would suggest that you try answer writing by using the kind of language and the kind of content that I have used, right? It is simplistic, at the same time it is not too cryptic, at the same time it has the requisite amount of content. So content and context, ये दो चीजों को ध्यान में रखना है आपको आंसर राइटिंग करते हुए, ठीक है? So till the time we meet next, this is Rohan Dange signing off from Skholar IAS. I'll see you on the other side. Thank you, take care, and keep practicing social distancing.